Alright, hello and welcome to my discussion slash review on the anime series Ergo Proxy. Um, if you've been following my discussions up until now, you may know that I mentioned that that I was interested in doing a discussion on this particular series at the conclusion of my Rosafon discussion. Uh, Ergo Proxy is along the same lines as Evangelion and Rosafon. It's a Japanese anime that's kind of pretentious, sort of artistic. Kind of heavy-handed. It has its flaws. It has its strengths. Something that's right up my alley. Something that I think is, or something I think offers a lot to talk about. Um, it's funny because I wasn't sure if I was going to do a discussion on this. I recently rewatched the series. Enjoyed it. It was my second time watching it. I first saw it about a year ago, and watching it again was enjoyable. More enlightening than it was the first time. But but I don't know. I guess I felt lazy and I didn't really feel compelled to really talk about it, or I didn't feel that there was a lot to talk about as opposed to what I discussed with Evangelion or Azafan. Those were pretty meaty. Uh, and it wasn't until I was thinking and jotting down notes for this discussion that I realized that there actually was a lot to talk about. And if I didn't do the discussion, when would I do it? When am I going to watch the series again? In another year, another 2 years, and if I'm going to do it, I'd have to do it now while it was still fresh. So, with that being said, again, this will be spoiler heavy. I think at this point, that's that goes without saying. I'm going to be discussing all the themes of the show, the characters, things that I thought were interesting, things that I thought the show did well, things that I didn't think it did well. So this isn't like strictly a review at all. There will be components of that. So again, if you haven't seen the series and you're interested in it, I recommend not listening to my discussion, or maybe skipping around. I don't know. I really couldn't give you any sound advice on that. Spoilers be here everywhere. That's the warning. But I guess Ergo Proxy, to provide some context of it, man, I'm not as familiar with it as I am, say, with Razafon or Evangelion. So if you've listened to those discussions and you thought I was maybe making too many assumptions, or that I sounded like I knew what I was talking about, either or. With this one, I don't feel as comfortable or safe making too many assumptions about it. I don't want to get in a position where I could be quoted from or give any misinformation. So I'm going to be a little more conservative with how I handle the discussion. That being said, I think Ergo Proxy is more straightforward in a lot of ways than Evangelion or Rosfon. Excuse me. Its mythology is pretty straightforward. A lot of the story, it pretty much gives you all the revelations to understand the story, and the few things that aren't explicitly said can be, gleaned, they can be assumed, they can be inferred from evidence throughout. Is Ergo Proxy a better series than those that I've discussed before? Is it even good? That's debatable. I like it a lot. I first saw it, I think it was airing on, the TV channel Fuse. Strangely enough, I don't know why they would be airing anime, but I saw a couple of episodes where I just glimpsed it, really, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And it wasn't until last year that I got my hands on the DVDs and I gave it a watch through, and it was compelling, definitely compelling. And watching it again, I realized that it's definitely up there in terms of my favorite animes. Is it as good as Evangelion or Razafon? No, I wouldn't say so. Ergo Proxy has its own share of problems, and it's not perfect, but it is good, and it is mature in a way, and it's dark, moody, but it has a heart too. It's not dark or gratuitous for the sake of it. It has a heart. Its sensibilities are in the right place. So if you wanted to hear that and you're interested in it, I recommend watching it. It's a good show. But alright, so that being said, for the remainder of this first segment of the discussion, I want to tackle the characters. That seems to be my go-to formula for these discussions. The good thing about Ergo Proxy is that it actually has a very small cast. Relative to the series I've discussed before, like Rosfon and Evangelion, they had huge casts, and each of the characters had his or her own contribution to the main plot. And to avoid one character or ignore him. It was almost like, well, what the hell? What do you want me to do? I can't talk about all of them. I'd like to, but I can't. And in the case of here, there are so few characters that, while I'll spend more time probably dedicated to the main cast, in this case Vincent Law, Riel Pino, I'll definitely give some time to like Daedalus, Raoul Creed, maybe even Christiva or the other Otto Reeves. Like each character uh, has more time to be developed on this show as opposed to the other ones. You have a smaller cast, and it's not some big ensemble where you have to split up time and dedicate time to each character. So, all right, well, we'll start with Vincent Law, the protagonist. Oh, excuse me. So, okay, Vincent Law. Vincent is kind of your unconventional hero. The majority of his plot, at least for the first half of the series, is he first tries to fit into. Well, okay. Oh well. Maybe I should begin with a summary. What is Ergo Proxy about? All right, Ergo Proxy takes place in a desolate wasteland. It's sometime in the far future, where the Earth is almost uninhabitable. The atmosphere is toxic to humans, or not toxic, but the human body isn't. It's unhealthy essentially. The sky is kind of clouded over with just dark storm clouds. There's no sun. There's no blue sky. The land is barren, kind of icy and cold. And the beginning of the story takes place in the domed city of Romdo, which is like a utopia. If you've read 1984 or Brave New World, expose yourself to that type of kind of utopia gone wrong. This dystopic setting. That's what Romdo is in a sense. It's like a cold kind of metallic paradise where everybody has like their materialistic wants. The humans are grown in tubes. They're kind of produced artificially. The citizens are almost kind of brainwashed in a way. They're encouraged to buy, to consume, keep Romdo going. They not meant to really question or make a fuss. There's kind of like just lonely people into this life, and this kind of orderly paradise. The humans also have entourages or robots, basically androids called Otto Reeves, which help them with their daily tasks, or help them with their jobs. And one of the early conflicts of the story that's introduced is that the Otto Reeves are starting to gain self-awareness, and they go crazy basically, and they attack people. And this is the result of the Cogito virus, which just infects the robots, and they go crazy. They kill people. I'll get into more of this in probably one of the future sections of discussion when I discuss more of the plot and mythology of Ergo Proxy, because it does have a key part in the story, and it doesn't come out until later on. But anyway, needless to say, Vincent Law is an immigrant coming into Romdo. So Romdo's not the only city. There are multiple cities out there in the wasteland. They're all domes. They're all similar to Romdo, but you're given basically the sense that Romdo's like the last one that's still standing. And Vincent Law comes from Mosk. Mosk was destroyed, and he's an immigrant. And as an immigrant, he has to gain citizenship. So you gain sort of this idea, like, Riel states, Vincent has the perfect face for a citizen. He's the kind of dutiful, doesn't really think, doesn't really do anything. He just kind of fits the mold, takes his little number, takes his name, does his job that he's given. That's it. The perfect citizen. And Vincent is sort of like a bumbling hero, kind of, sort of, always nervous, anxious. Not very confident, not very conventional in any way, and he's basically he's charged as an immigrant working with the auto disposal facility or whatever or whatnot, and he's charged with finding infected auto reeves, dismantling them, essentially bringing them down, or taking them in, and that's Vincent's story. And the thing about Vincent is that it's not so much that he has amnesia. but he doesn't remember what happened at Mosque, what forced him to go to Rondo. But anyway, the story basically ends up with him being chased out of Rondo. We discover that Rondo has a what's known as a proxy, this type of powerful, almost monster-like being that exists, that they have captive, and the proxy is what powers the city. And for whatever reason, the proxy chases after Vincent Law. Vincent Law is then chased by the security of the security bureau of Rondo. It's essentially its police force, and he makes his way out into the outside world to figure out why this is happening to him. To go back to Moss, figure out the answers. As the series goes on, we discover that Vincent is himself a proxy, which is why the proxy that attacked him, Monad, when in the first place the proxies are drawn to each other. When the time of the awakening occurs, they have to fight. They end up killing each other, and Vincent's a proxy, Ergo Proxy, who has apparently erased his memories for some reason that we don't discover. And that's Vincent. That's Vincent's conflict throughout the stories, figuring out why this happened, why he erased his memories, where he comes from, what is his duty as a proxy, who is he and what is he supposed to do. So knowing this, having this as a context, Vincent he's not really heroic. I wouldn't call him a hero. He just sort of bumbles around. And people yell at him, and he hangs his head. He has like no backbone. And I can't criticize him for that. But it's not what you would expect from a hero. He's kind of like Shinji, I guess, from Evangelion. He just sort of takes it, and it's always like, I didn't do this, like he has his little rebuttals, his little retorts. And he's always like the butt monkey, essentially. He's accused of something, he didn't do this, and he's always like the one that everybody pokes at, gets after, So he's not a conventional protagonist. And everywhere he goes, being a proxy, people start dying. There's always this conflict chasing him around, and you feel for the guy, you really do, because he didn't ask for any of this. It's like everything kind of spirals out of control, and he's the one that has to deal with it. Suddenly it falls on his shoulders. He has to discover what's going on. Why is it happening to him? Vincent does develop. The interesting thing about this is that the show artistically is aware of how he starts out, like this kind of mild-mannered, conservative, keeps his head down, this type of character, and then as it goes on, he becomes more heroic. He gains a better sense of himself, of what he's meant to do, or when he discovers that he's Ergo Proxy, etc. So in the beginning, Vincent is animated or drawn. Like he's kind of roundish, just short. His head, he has his little squinty eyes closed. His hair is all like, I don't know, how do I describe it? His hair, he has this like little squiggle, this little cowlick in his hair, and it's like gelled to his face, and he's all clean shaven, and he's all like this little orange ball. And then as the series progresses, and he develops as a character, his true self starts to emerge. Suddenly he's taller, he's animated, taller. His eyes open, they're green, and he has like a 5 o'clock shadow. His hair takes on that more kind of windswept look. He just looks more attractive as the series goes on. His animation. I thought that was always very interesting, and it's a good way to portray Vincent changing, developing. So that's Vincent. There's not a lot to say about him. He goes through his development, I guess. He at the end of the series, he assumes this responsibility. He accepts that he was Ergo Proxy, etc. And he's kind of left to deal with the aftermath of the series. And I'll get to that later on in the discussion. All right, so the second character, the deuteragonist, I suppose, would be Riel Mayer. Riel is the complete opposite of Vincent. Definitely his foil. Definitely a compliment to him. She's kind of rough and tough. Wears black. She has that kind of iconic blue eyeliner. Like if you see that, it's Ergo Proxy. It's Riel. Kind of high maintenance. She's the granddaughter of Donna of Mayer, the regent of Rondo. So she's kind of used to having people do everything for her. Whereas Vincent has had it rough. She's had it pretty nice, pretty secure, pretty safe, gotten everything she ever wanted. And so she sort of has this like demanding personality, very strong-willed, rough, tough, carries her shotgun around with her, and I hesitate to call her a bitch. Everybody calls her a bitch. Uh, she's sort of like the Ice Queen, and she really isn't. She's not a bad person. She's not mean. She's not mean-spirited. It's just her personality is not antisocial, but just rough. She's hard. She's hard. She's hard-edged, and in this way, she's the perfect complement to Vincent. And Riel is pretty interesting. Again, there's not a lot to say about her. She doesn't have a lot of psychological problems or anything like that. It's not like Evangelion where I would be lamenting, oh my god, Asuka or Shinji or this or that. Oh, excuse me. She's what she is. And Riel kind of goes through a development. Like if Vincent becomes more tougher or more responsible, she becomes less stuck up, I guess, less uptight. She becomes more she warms up to Vincent DePino. She's a good character. She has her development. She's well written, animated well. She's a good character, and it's kind of like the character that you like. Even though she has these personality defects, I think she accepts them. She acknowledges, she takes responsibility for how she is and the consequences that has. I'll mention it later on when I discuss in more detail the Iggy episode, but that's a good example of Riel kind of dealing with how her personality affects those around her. She tends to just do what she wants, and she doesn't realize that there are consequences for her actions. And what happens with Iggy is a good way for the show to explore that, and we get some good stuff out of Riel. And as the series goes on, she tends to care more about other people and not just herself. All right, so rounding out the main cast, or the main trio, is Pino, and there's not a lot to say about Pino. I mean, she's self-explanatory, insufferably cute, certainly the most charming character on the show by far. This little girl Otto Reeve, who gains self-awareness through the Cogito virus, but the thing about Pino is that she doesn't go crazy. She's like a little girl, and what's interesting about her is her reactions to things. Like she doesn't understand. Like a character dies and she'll say, "I know he's dead, but I want to see him again." Like I know that he's gone, but can't he come back? Or she doesn't understand what it means to be happy or sad. And Pino also undergoes development. She starts off like very naive. Again, she's naive, but as the series goes on, I think she gains a better understanding of the world around her and her place in it, and her own emotions. She reconciles how she misses her papa, and she also reconciles her feelings toward Vincent and Riel, and she's just, she is what she is. I think if you watch Ergo Proxy and you see Vincent and Riel, then you're just kind of like, oh man, they can be kind of frustrating. Vincent and his kind of incompetence, Riel and kind of her stubbornness, and then you have Pino. Pino just kind of brightens the mood with her genuine smile. As a robot, despite the fact that she's a robot, she's just cute. She's just lively, dresses up in her rabbit costume. I mean, there's really nothing bad to say about her character, and there's not a whole lot to say either. Again, I think the thing about these characters is that they're all very straightforward, well developed, well written, and they're not really conflicted. Each character kind of goes through their own developmental path or phase, and not a lot bad to say about any of the main cast. Really, they're all pretty good. Yeah. Let me see. That would leave, in terms of characters, the only real major ones would be Daedalus and Raoul Creed. Yeah, Daedalus is yeah, he's pretty crazy. Probably my least favorite character on the show. Not because he's a bad character, but of course just how he's written. He's he's just creepy. kind of the adolescent doctor, the obligatory kind of young doctor character, pretty boy character who he just goes crazy. When he loses Riel, he not really in love with her, but he has this sort of obsession with her. She's his reason for being, to protect her, and he even goes so far as to clone her. And the guy's just crazy. He just kind of goes batshit. Um, and then you have Raul. Raul is really interesting. Definitely, he's not like an evil character by any means. He's a man who's emotionally devastated very early on, and his quest to discover the proxy, figure out the secrets, and then later on, further on, to apprehend or even kill Vincent Law is fueled by vengeance and sorrow. We discover that Raul's wife and his the baby that he and his wife were given are killed because of the proxy attack, and the proxy when Monad's chasing Vincent Law through the Ramdo shopping mall. And then, to make matters worse, Pino, who is actually his... she's not his daughter, of course, but she was there. She was kind of served as a daughter for him and his wife. To which he was very close to, and she's very close to him. And she basically goes to Vincent Law. So it's almost as if Vincent caused, ruined Raul's life. And his obsession with gaining vengeance on Vincent Law is pretty much the backbone of his own personal story. But we also see Raul Creed gain a very kind of like chaotic edge to him. This kind of almost kind of bent by like anarchy. Anarchy. I'm sorry. He becomes this very chaotic individual, not a villain. But it's like at the end, his whole philosophy about Ramdo is, well, if Ramdo's gonna fall, let's stop relying on the proxies. Let's stop relying on the auto reefs. Let us as humans do resolve our own problems. Let's wipe the slate clean. Destroy it all and rebuild. And his plan doesn't go so well. It kind of escalates the destruction of Ramdo. But again, I think Raul just kind of becomes a character who loses everything, and he's compelling. He's a very compelling case. And the unfortunate thing that I feel about the series is that once the series moves outside of Ramdo, we only get a couple of episodes with Raul. Like, they'll go back to Ramdo and we'll kind of see what he's doing, but he tends to just sit on his laurels. He does one major contribution, which is to fire the Rapture nuke to destroy Mosque and an attempt to kill Vincent. But beyond that, he doesn't do a whole lot. We don't get to see a whole lot of him, until the very end. And I feel like he was underused. Like, we had potential there for a good villain. But what's there is good, and he's written well. And finally, there's Dono, Mayor, the Regent. Not a lot to say about him. I probably won't even discuss him. I mean, you can watch the series. If you've seen the series, you know what he is, what his role is. You had the other proxies, Synax, Cascus, the other sort of ones, MCQ, whatever, but none of them are particularly noteworthy. They kind of serve their purposes in pushing Vincent towards discovering who he is. Oh, excuse me. So that's pretty much the cast of Ergo Proxy. There's Iggy, I guess, but I'll discuss Iggy in a little bit when I discuss more about the themes of the show. Iggy, like Pino, gains sentience through the Cogito virus, and he sort of, for the first time, kind of vilifies Riel. Riel kind of abused him the whole time, and he gets kind of his vengeance on her, but in the sense that, like, he just wants to protect her. He's just driven, even if he dislikes her, hates her, he has to protect her. So, yeah, that's about all I can think of for the characters. So I guess we'll cut this part of the discussion here. We'll stop it here, and in the next one, I'll start getting into more detail on the themes of the show. Yeah, that's what we'll do. So, if you're enjoying this so far, please join me on the next section. Thanks.